stewardship that I am truly proud of and that helps shape the scientist and engineer that I am becoming. Thank you to NANS for this incredible honor, which I take very pride in and that I will carry for the rest of my life. And also for being a home of innovation for this community. Thank you to the selection committee who saw value in my work and selected me from a pool of candidates who I am sure are equally deserving for this honor. Thank you also to my colleagues and collaborators and past members for the nomination, past group members for the nomination. I'm grateful not only for your support and hard work, but also for the debates and disagreements that pushed us every day to become better. This work also wouldn't have been possible without the support of government agencies, especially the NIH, and particularly the BRAIN Initiative, as well as early support from the NSF, UC San Diego, and more recently ARPA-H. But most importantly, this award is made possible and belongs to a group of extraordinary graduate students and postdocs whose trust and resilience and creativity drive everything we do. And in the next few slides, I'll share with you their story through pictures. Diagrams and videos that as you see right here, it's still playing. If you can help play it, I'd appreciate that. And that work was driven by Dr. Yongbei Chue, who is now an assistant professor at UNIST, who made the fabrication possible as well as the data analysis. Dr. Dan Cleary, who's now an assistant professor at OHSU, and who made the clinical translation possible, and Andrew Boris, who's now at Apple, and who made the hardware possible. Dr. Aslan saw the opportunity immediately in utilizing this technology for functional mapping in the operating room as early as 2019. And then this expanded with my collaborators, Dr. Benhaim and Dr. Khalissi, toward epilepsy monitoring and BCI interfaces. 2 years later, we started incorporating light to be able to project this functional activity directly from the surgical field, again with the leadership of Yongbei Chue and Dan Cleary, and Dr. Yu, who just recently got his PhD and ready to transition to the market, to the working sector. We published on this. It has been a great pleasure to work with Dr. Cash and Dr. Polk at Mass General Hospital, who were partners on this work. Also at NANS, I presented on our minimally invasive, flexible depth electrodes with high channel count, and highlight here Kyondong Lee, who is now a staff member in my startup, and Yung Ro, who is a postdoc at UNIST, again with the same collaborators. But there has been a lot of work that predated this that I'd like to highlight for some of my group members. This work started with a collaboration with Eric Halpin and Vikash Gilja about the year of 2014, where we were impressed with the work of Professor George Malareas, who demonstrated early on, around 2012, 2013, that ECOG grids can measure single units from the surface of the brain. And so Eric and Vikash approached me and asked me if we can collaborate with him and transition that capability to UCSD, and we started that collaboration. Leading that program was a graduate student, his name is Mehran Ganji, who published a number of papers that are shown over here. First on sterilization, the translation to the OR, the scaling effects of microelectrode size on recording and stimulation, the stability of PDOT, and this was a collaboration with a larger ecosystem, a number of more members of the lab, and before he graduated, he demonstrated the platinum nanorods that we carried forward since 2019. Ludwig Batsarayan picked up the work after Mehran Ganji published a couple of papers that we just saw on safety of stimulation. And very recently, through experiments on tens of animals, several hundreds of slices, we have shown that these models that we have published 2021, 2022 are actually valid, where we see tissue response and damage happening exactly at the CIC levels that our models have predicted. More recently, Vatsayan demonstrated with pulse width modulation that we can precisely tune where charge under the surface can exceed thresholds for stimulation, and what has been talked about a little bit earlier about temporal interference. But this is in a new way to do it, and has shown that from a selection of 14 muscles, you can selectively stimulate one muscle at a time. Out of the 14 muscles that we were monitored, we with only 2 pairs of contacts were able to stimulate selectively 8 muscles and steer the stimulation from the right of the spinal cord to the left of the spinal cord. So this work that will be shown up hopefully in the next few weeks will be published and has been shown to work chronically as well in the chronic setting. And at NANS, I had presented in the past about mapping and stimulation with the spine wrap work that I should highlight by Samantha Russman, who have really carried out and led this work with the help of Ria Montgomery Walsh, and building on earlier work by Dr. Joel Morton, who is now practicing neurosurgeon in Florida, and Samuel Lee, who's working at a startup, again with more colleagues. We are funded by the NIH to do wireless epilepsy mapping and stimulation. A few years ago, we demonstrated these prototypes that you see on the left. And here I highlight the work that's led by Ji-Won Lee for the high channel count echo-garlays together with Tara Porter and Kiefer Forsyth, who is a neurosurgery resident working in our lab, who took this to the animal model and was able to develop techniques to stereotactically implant depth electrodes in animals that we see are moving a few days after the implant. A few years ago, we showed that we can map functional boundaries and units from the surface of the brain and align it with histology. And when you have a few thousands of channels and you can stack them in 1 millimeter square, this is at a pitch of 31 micron, now we can show that we can decode directionality from an individual cortical column or a cortical barrel, where we're looking at modules that are evoked for fine movement of whiskers, in this case, in 8 different directions. And more recently, I want to give you a window of where this work is going into the future. About 3 years ago, I met my colleague and now collaborator, Dr. Anne Hanneken, who had succeeded in reviving the human eye after death for 4 hours. In parallel, there were efforts at different health centers in the US where half or full face transplants were made possible. And the remaining piece of connecting the eye of a donor to the brain of a recipient is to have an optic nerve regeneration to connect it. And this is precisely what we've been working on over the last couple of years with the device that you saw on the bottom left. And I wanted to say that over the last 2 years, we were able to decode the axis from the retina to the optic nerve to the brain, both with visual stimuli as a function of color, patterns, and with electrical stimuli, and look at the spatiotemporal dynamics of these different color coding, both on the optic nerve and on the brain. And so we'll see a paper coming on this shortly. It's been about 25 years since to do my graduate school. And I think every day about this town that Ahmad talked about. This is my town where the picture is taken from our balcony, and about my family, who truly deserve the credit because of their patience, support, and love. The US gave me the environment to discover what I could be skilled at and the impact I can have. If given the opportunity to continue this work, I promise we will take it far for patients, for science, and for the community. So thank you again, Nancy.